Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who, after watching this film, he reconstructed his home to just be an open cube. Not the cube from Cube with all the little cubes. We're just talking a cavernous gymnasium space. And he doesn't wear shoes anymore, only sandals. It's John Levengood.
Sounds like a theme park for spiders to sneak up on me, Mark.
Well, no, you don't want hallways anymore. You have no lights with timers. You don't have shoes. You have no drains at all in there that they can crawl. Like you're basically Devon Sawa you're Ali Larder from Final Destination 2.
Okay. Oh, so it's like an empty space.
Yeah, empty. So nothing can sneak up on you.
Okay, gotcha.
Like you can't kick through the wall and have a billion drop on your head.
And because it's going to be echoey, I will be able to, just like in this movie, hear a spider crawling towards me.
Yeah. And you have 3,000 glass cups, like on little props. So when spiders walk by, they trap themselves.
I'll start smoking again, so just like John Constantine, I can blow smoke under there and trap the spider in there with it.
That's an all-timer spider.
Like I feel.
That's an all-timer spider moment. Oh man, I love that you brought that up. So John, I was hanging out one night, and I start getting messages from you, and you're like, "Have you watched Infested?" And then I get another one. "This movie's awesome." And then I get another one.
It in real time.
And then I get another one like, "Yeah, this movie's holding up." And then it finished, and you're like, "Yeah, we got to cover this one." So you didn't get the opening. It didn't open hot and fall off. It didn't start. The first half was good, and then it fell off. It wasn't 3/4 good, then had a terrible ending. You kept messaging me all the way through this movie. And you're like, "We got to talk about it." I'm like, "Shoot, I love French horror." So I was 100% down. And now we're talking Infested, John.
Yeah, it's interesting. The beginning of this movie, which is super stylish, especially when it rolls into the opening credits, it's really, really stylish, like very hip, foreign, I want to say French hip hop, and just this montage music video, like drug cartel crime, Guy Ritchie. I don't even know what to call it, right? But it was super stylish. It wasn't just that it had this music or this cool montage. It was the feel of it, and the feel actually reminded me of the movie Saloum, which is African 2021 movie.
I love that movie.
I was not a fan of the whole movie. I was a huge fan of the first half of the movie.
Like the heist and getting to know the characters and stuff like that.
And I was, in the first 30 minutes especially, I'd say Act 1, 30 minutes, I was in love. It was magically stylish. It was lightning in a bottle stylish. I feel like only the first 10 or 15 minutes of this movie is. And then it dropped off a little bit, but I still liked it. And then when its supernatural approach, I didn't care for as much, but I still revere it as a highly recommended, foreign, stylish, interesting movie that embraces its foreign roots in it, right? Whereas in this movie, it does it. And for me anyway, a lot of people love Saloum, by the way.
I do. I'm one of them.
Yeah. It just didn't, it just dropped off for me for some reason, but I still strongly recommend it.
But you make a great point, though.
This movie held the whole time.
It starts hot, right? You meet the characters. They're cool. The camera work is cool. And then you get kind of the monsters afterwards, the local stuff. And I get it. With this movie.
In some ways, because only some movies nail these stylish openings. Sometimes it's more about the credits and sometimes it's not. But I sit and wonder, how many movies in the last 10 years really nailed openings like this? I'm not going to try and say his name in a French way. So Sébastien, not Sébastien, whatever.
Yeah.
But did Sébastien Vaniček, sorry for the pronunciation, Sobs, if you're listening. But did Sébastien Vaniček, was he actually influenced by Saloum? Which is interesting because that's also a movie that takes place in Africa. This has no African connections directly, but this movie, Infested, actually starts in the United Arab Emirates.
I think
in the Arabian Peninsula.
And he also pulled a little bit from Arachnophobia. You have the journey into the jungle.
Huge.
Yeah, and I think he was really open for that. I didn't hear anything about Saloum. The main reference that he said is he loves the movie Green Room. And so the movie Green Room inspired him a lot, which you can see because this movie's quite brutal. But I didn't see anything about Saloum in the stylishness of it.
It's almost, I almost mean that more in the sense of
the editing and the music and
going out of your way to try and infuse a feeling into your audience rather than being influenced by the camera work or, the cold open. Like there very few movies are this gripping, like this kind of music video game gripping. Like you don't want it to end. It's so cool, even though it almost has nothing to do with the movie. In Saloon, it was the action thing that was almost shot pseudo video game style, but also with cool hip hop music, right? And the edgy characters you're being introduced to. And this, it starts with it's almost delivered like he's setting us up to want to view these Arabian spider collectors as terrorists because they're very aggressive. They're not telling us what they're saying, which leaves us in the dark. We don't know what they're doing right away. So I think that would be the natural Western culture response, to be a little on guard about them. I feel like he's playing on our social defaults, which we should be faulted upon. And then we realize that they're spider collectors, but we are given little sympathy to them. And the moment one of them is bitten, someone just immediately goes to hack off, I think, his arm where he was bitten, or maybe he was just killing
he kills him. Yeah, he kills him. He whacks him right in the head.
But and then you see this cool montage of the transport of the specimens from field to post, right, getting shipped and everything. But again, I feel like he was playing on on a lot of the audience's insecurities a little bit, because again, at first I didn't know who these people were, or what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you're on board with this feeling or not.
Well, yeah, I think it was just a very fast, very snappy. I mean, this guy, the guy who directed it, Sébastien, he had directed 50 shorts before this. The guy who was the DP on this movie, I have his name right here. Here it comes. The DP, Alexandre Jamin, he shot music videos. And so I think they just infused the credits like a very fast intro. Like, let's get, even though the first kills don't happen for a while, because there's a lot of great character development. But I think they're like, okay, let's get from wherever they are to wherever he is quick. But I think they did that in a pretty neat, and it didn't feel overly stylish to me. It felt very organic, and it just felt like these people are going in the middle of nowhere. They are like, they're getting animals that sell all over the world, and I just kind of had that vibe to it. Like, it just felt very in and out and efficient for me. But it also tells a story that this spider will kill you, and they probably shouldn't be shipping these things around the world, but they could probably get a pretty penny. So and
they give you that high energy credits montage.
Yeah. Like, but I think, I don't know if you know this better than you. Probably know a lot more about this than I do, maybe. But I mean, I think the illegal sale of animals all over the world, as small as arachnids, is strong. Correct?
Oh yeah, I see it at work, unfortunately, all the time. It's everything from colorful isopods like roly-polies to ants that just look like carpenter ants. Like, you just say that looks like carpenter ants, but sometimes people want to keep a whole bunch of species, and they could be ecologically tragic if they got out in, say the United States, where they don't belong. And then, and dangerous things as well. It's, believe it or not though, like the sale of highly dangerous spiders is not common. That's actually very rare. And when it is, it's usually an extremely well-known thing, like the 4 different widow spider species.
Oh, okay.
That are, because there's a brown widow, the black widow, a red widow. I think there's another that's just called like they're the eastern and western widow. I'm not a spider guy, so forgive me, folks. If some arachnologist is like, you're the worst entomologist ever, it's like, I don't try and get into it. But it's not a lot. Usually it's tarantulas, or jumping spiders. It's the charismatic things that tend to sell. But I'm sure, I assure you though, and I go on insect collecting trips around the world. I recently contacted someone in Indonesia trying to get a trip, and then I found out he wasn't getting permits for collecting. He was getting permission by paying off park rangers. So really everything I collect would have been illegal. I'm sure that same person would have had no qualms if someone said, hey, I'll give you $200 if you get me this super rare deadly spider out there. I'll bet he'd be like, sure, I'm going to ship it to you. Because shipping that is no different than shipping a harmless spider, to be honest, if you're comfortable getting it into a container. This stuff, I've seen weird stuff in pet trade. So this movie, the premise is not unreasonable at all. And even those guys going out to get it like that, I feel like they'd be a lot more careful as they're doing. I'm like, they clearly know what this is. They're killing the guy when he gets bitten, so they know how bad these spiders are. They were pretty reckless when they were smoking those spiders out of that hole.
Yeah, I think that was just all credits, right? Because they knew what they were going after. It's like, hey, John, go catch that black mamba. And then you just run up to it like, hey!
Like, I'm left to wonder if all that, I'll just say Arabic that they were speaking where they don't give us subtitles. I wonder if it was like, look, you're the new guy. I know you're excited, but you need to follow the protocol. And then he doesn't follow the protocol, and he's like, you should have followed the protocol, man. And then he takes him out. Like maybe it was actually more sympathetic, and it just sounds aggressive to me because I don't know like German sounds very harsh to an American ear. You know, like I wonder if it's just that, and they're just like, hey man, I found these spiders. And like, dude, that's awesome. Let's go get those spiders. And instead it sounds like, I don't know, just very aggro, right?
Yep. No, it's funny about my wife has been doing Duolingo German for about 3 years now, and sometimes you'll just hear some things and you're like, excuse me? No, but yeah, I mean, maybe it was his brother-in-law that he hates. He's like, yeah, go ahead, go stick your face in there. Like, yeah, it's fine.
You know, I gotta explain this to my sister.
But
explain what happened to her husband.
Based on the research, you know, you're talking about maybe like some terrorism or the sales, but the director, he said that, you know, in France, there's really not a lot of horror films. I know we had the extreme stuff in the 2000s, and lately there's been a comeback with Raw, which is an incredible film, Titan, Revenge. There's a couple more. Under Paris is coming out.
The Swarm.
The Swarm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's been some really good, like, and Saloum, that was by a French director. The Night Eats the World. There's another one that came out this year about humans who become animals. That's actually like, crap, I forgot the name, but like, there's not that many. And so the director, when you make these things, I think in France, what he was saying was you can't just make a straight up spider film. And so he started thinking about where he lived in the suburbs of Paris, when he, like, you know, a lot of people, they don't really, like, you know, a lot of the rich people look at the people in these suburbs, they don't know them. Like, he's like, you have this interesting parallel with spiders, because spiders are judged for their appearances, and then people from the suburbs are judged for where they come from. So I immediately had this parallel, and I knew that would treat my characters like the spiders. They're in the same building, and they will have to survive. And surviving means they have to have a battle between these two, because people try to kill them, and they have to defend themselves from their predator. So he kind of based it on that. So, you know, and you know what's interesting? I was listening to when I drive to work, it's an hour and a half, and so I listen to reviews and explains just to kind of fill my head of more data or research, or I can pick up a cool fact. I don't know what you think, John, but one of the people talking about this movie said that Caleb, the main character, is like, they're like, he makes so many stupid decisions, and he's a brat, and he's this, that, and the other, and he's dumb, and he's like, I just wanted him off the screen. But I like Caleb. I feel like I understand Caleb. I understood him. I never minded Caleb one bit.
I'm going to agree, and I think that the only ways that Caleb is a brat or an annoying character or makes stupid decisions, they are in ways where I 100% relate to being a brat, making stupid decisions at that same respective age. I almost wonder, I'm not making an accusation here, I almost wonder if the person who watched this is not far enough from that behavior in their own life to look back and reflect on it, you know, more casually and less sensitively, or perhaps that person just never was that person. But I was, and I don't think he's particularly bratty. I don't think he's particularly ill-decisioned. I think that at that age, I'm making those decisions. I'm behaving that way. I'm expressing my emotions with that level of occasional immaturity and lack of resolve. And so I like the character.
Yeah,
I think
he's great.
I think he tried very well to be accepting and inclusive, if you will. And I don't mean that in a social warrior way, and I don't mean that a social warrior way is bad. But he just seemed like a sincerely nice person who's just doing his best to get through a poor lifestyle.
But I mean, that's what they wrote. So like, the director said he's such a good actor that you understand like all the failures he has. And he's like, we are the same age. We want to do the same movie. We wanted to root things in France, and they wanted a big release in France. But like Caleb, his mom died. He loved his mom. That's the apartment they had. That's the family that supported him through that. He's not good at communicating because, he does have a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he doesn't trust a lot of people. Maybe he has that, like his friend left. And, some people just can't, as much as we like to think so, John, some people just can't express their emotions. Like some people will hold on to the grave with something like that. The way that these two,
whether they're conscious of it or not.
Like Jordy and Caleb, man, they were best friends. And then an iguana bite separates them. He's like, he ratted on me, then he didn't come back. And, like those little things of it, he ratted on me, he didn't come back for my mom, like drove a wedge between them. And, a lot of people, instead of just being like, hey man, my bad, they both go at each other. And that's just human nature. So yeah, when I heard that stuff, I was like, that's ridiculous. Because listen, John, if you and I were in an apartment block and mega spiders were spawning beyond all belief and they were gigantic and killing people, the deaths aren't as fast as arachnophobia, but they're killing the crap out of people. You and I aren't going to make the smart decisions. We aren't going to, it's not about it. Whenever someone watches a horror movie or whatever, and they're like, I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, yeah, you would have crapped your pants. Like it's,
and they say things like the person's down, keep hitting them, you idiot. It's like their adrenaline is pumping and they're terrified. They're not thinking rash. You're sitting on the couch. You've seen a bunch of horror movies. You've been storing up these criticisms and you're recycling them on the scene. Like they don't get to think clearly.
Yeah. And I know I'm gonna stop bringing this up a lot, but being that I was a bouncer who worked in a bar and watched many inebriated people fight, they have no idea what they're doing, John. And then they get tired. No one has it's all ugly. So like people are like, you know what I would do? I would deliver a triple backflip on Jason and then I would like stab him 48 times. Like, no, you wouldn't. You would crumple. And so
if Jake Gyllenhaal just ducked half a second earlier when he saw that coming from Conor McGregor in the remake of Roadhouse, then he would have won, and then he would have sidestepped and rabbit punched him. And it's like, dude, you're hitting the pause button.
And I don't know. I liked Caleb, man. Like I've watched this movie several times now, and he's fully relatable. Like, there's that scene where he knows the spider's loose in his room and everyone's in his room, so he's being a brat. He's like, get out of here. He's not going, get out of my room, guys. He's going, guys, get out of my room. I'm not going to tell you why because it's embarrassing, but get the heck out of my room because there's a spider loose in here. But he doesn't tell him. So like all these decisions just make sense. And then, I like Matthias, like his friend. I like Manon. I like his sister. Like I like Lila. I like Caleb. Like they're very interesting cast, and I liked all of them. This is just a movie, John, that it's probably, what I love about it? It's one of those trapped in a location with monsters, but it's one of those films that takes a lot of time to build the characters. It takes a lot of time to establish their relationships. And it's quite serious. I mean, there's a death when one of the likable characters is just screaming his ears off while his girlfriend covers her ears and screams while he's screaming while he's dying. But then there's also silly moments with shoes and vents, and it knows how to play on fears of spiders. So it's kind of silly. It's very serious. It's brutal. It's well made. The upside down shots that they do, the spinning shots. He's like, yeah, I wanted them to feel like they were spiders. So even the stylish shots make sense narratively. And it's just an all around good creature feature movie. It's a good film.
I got to say, with all the CGI in hindsight, and I was thinking it about halfway through the creature portion of the movie, so probably starting about 40 minutes into the movie. But I even caught myself thinking, like, there is a lot of CGI here. And I get that the not so bright lighting is on their side, but even the way they have the spiders move, there are very few moments where I can point out a particular spider where I felt like there was a bit of a short sight in the CGI application. And it's like that particular spider for that 1 second, whereas most of it, they were very elegantly tactful. Like you're never taken out of it by, oh, it looks so, it looks terrible or whatever.
Well, they did a really smart thing.
It never rolled into, and if it did do that, by the way, then you just enjoy it like a bad movie almost, right? You roll into like, or silly movie, like you roll into 8-Legged Freaks mindset instead. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't do that. It keeps you in a more serious mindset. When little tiny spiders way too fast movement for reality, but swarm all over someone's arm or swarm out from under a towel, right? Or some object. Like you feel that. You're just like, whoa, like that. Whereas when that same thing happens and things are crawling all over people in King Kong, like all the giant Mormon crickets in the Peter Jackson King Kong, or even in Eight-Legged Freaks again, or like movies like The Mist, it's just like, oh my God, these crazy creatures. You're kind of like laughing while you're recoiling. Whereas in this, you're just like, whoa, oh no, not me.
You are 100% correct. And you know what I liked about the director? They started shooting with real spiders. They had real spiders on set. And then the VFX artists got to be on set with those real spiders. So they took a ton of references from the real spiders. So when it came time for the visual effects spiders, they had a ton of reference already. So then they were able to kind of seamlessly add those in there. But you're right. Like, this never becomes big ass spider where you're taken out of it and becomes silly. You know, Eight-Legged Freaks I love, but there's a scene where a little spider is going down a zip line going woohoo, and then it hits a wall and goes ugh. Like they're cheeky little bastards. These things are not cheeky little bastards. They are evolving Darwin talking. They go full Darwin with evolution and just kill. And you know what I love too is what I love about I'm stuck here and I need to get out movies is that like there's always a mission and they have to get to that mission. And so I love the hallway scene because there's a light that lasts 60 seconds. And so they have to walk through. And then he's like, hurry up, but be careful. Like Caleb says, hurry up and be careful. Then Lila's like, that's the worst advice ever. And so not only do you have spiders everywhere that can murder you, but then you have a ticking clock. Then you have a dark hallway. And then the lights go out. Like, it's just fun. It's a really well-made movie about getting from point A to point B to point C. Plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And it's still... I don't know. It's nice. Like, I like the characters. I was in on the characters. When Jordy died, man, you know how many horror movies you watch, John, and you feel bad for the deaths? Like, I felt really bad for Jordy. I felt bad for Matthias. Like, I liked it, that little MMA fighter. Like, he's the little bike thief. But sorry about little, but yeah, he's just a likable character. And that's a testament to the director. Like, this movie definitely hits above its weight. And I like what you said too. It keeps it dark. The lights go out. That makes visual effects easier. So it just comes from someone who had a lot of experience, I think, making shorts and making them good and making them cheap. And then he got a budget and he knew how to make everything cheap, but he also knows how to make things good. So it's just a nice step up. And like, that's why he got Evil Dead. Like, I'm excited to see his Evil Dead movie. I think he'll knock that out the park. So it'd be interesting to see if it's in another, Evil Dead Rise. Man, that movie's nuts. But
that was fun.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. We talked about that.
Yeah, it's well, we haven't done a full episode on it, but
we didn't. I don't know why I thought we did. Maybe we just talked about it so much.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd be down. We've talked about all the other ones, but I don't know. I think I don't know. I just like the movie. I wish I had more for you.
Say, I really need to swing it home for listeners who are thinking about what we're saying, but it's sometimes no matter how well we feel it when we say it, people just don't quite get how much we mean it. Like, with so much CGI, there truly was every possible opportunity to disappoint the audience with some of these effects, and the thousands of spiders and all of the wispy webs spanning across the screens, right? And all just, it never happened. Again, I have individual seconds, maybe 2 or 3 individual seconds where I'm like, that spider, that looked weird. And then I'm immediately taken out of it because everything else is so incredibly on point. This was so beautifully, tactfully done. And when those spiders crawled, my skin did the same. Like, it was so, even though it's kind of dumb that you hear them so well and they make chirping sounds, like but I think part of that is also just a good filmmaking device to bring us into, I don't know, the sensation of the movie. Get to create an additional stimulus to give panic. Man, I was so on, and there was some ridiculous biology going on here, even more ridiculous than in the original Arachnophobia. And I didn't care. I didn't care that over the course of not even a day, these spiders went through multiple generations and grew to the size of a Vespa. Like a Vespa with legs, and they gave one line of dialogue, which is some real biological nonsense, or taken horribly out of context, maybe I should say. But it was fun. Even those big spiders, with the big spiders, it still never felt like eight-legged freaks. I still felt like I was watching a movie about real spiders that just ended up doing nonsensical things, but it didn't make the movie nonsensical. Even when I watched a spider like an Alien 3 crawl out of the chest of the pit bull that it used to gestate into a more giant spider.
It's insane. But
yes, that's a scene, people. That's a real scene that you see in this. You see a huge spider come out of the chest of a custodian who's webbed to the ceiling, and you just see these limbs start to poke their way out and then widen like a flower blossoming in time lapse, and then its body pulls out. There's some weird stuff in this movie that was done very well.
And the mark of a good movie is you don't ask that. I think when a movie is subpar or not good, you're like, how is this happening? This makes no, when you sit there watching a movie, and even when you're great at just suspending suspending disbelief and just rolling with whatever happens with you, there are still some movies where you're like, that's not right. That's not good. Even if you give it, but this one, I think since you don't ask that question, it's because they're like, yeah, that defends itself and it does this. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And so it's just essentially a super spider race that makes okay, John, who wins? The world is, let's see. There's a giant island and a group of gremlins, and there's a lot of water on this island. There's a group of gremlins. There's these spiders. Who wins?
Okay, realistically, I don't think that the spiders in their smaller forms could pierce the hides of those gremlins. They look like very hard. Yeah. Scale-skinned. I think the gremlins too, though, their reproductive potential is actually equally ridiculous, and they seem to be shockingly self-aware of how to expedite that. So I don't know. This might be like some AVP fighting on top of a Mexican ziggurat scene where there's just hundreds of both, but I don't know. I feel like, so one side will have to win, right? When you have logarithmic growth patterns or exponential growth patterns, if you will, whichever side starts first in this case is probably going to win. But which side starts to get the edge first, I think is a total coin toss.
Yeah. Either way, it'd be fun to watch. It'd be brutal.
It's just pandemonium.
No, I like what you said about AVP on top of the temple, or it's just, it's like
people
Kingdom
know
of Heaven.
that reference to that 2009 movie or whatever.
But it was perfect. Yeah, it's like Kingdom of Heaven where the two armies run at each other and just all out pandemonium. It's I was gonna message you that and ask you that question because what's going on here? But these things spawn fast and they spread quick and they do that. But you know what? Sometimes a xenomorph in a alien movie, they go from chest burster to fully formed creature in 3 minutes. So you're just like, whatever. Enzymes. That's what happens. There's just
enzymes.
But a good movie, you can do that. You're just like, yeah, enzymes. It just does it. They're juicy. That's what it does. It's fine.
They're juicy.
Yeah, you don't care. I think. I was kind of, I know you said you're not really a specialist in arachnids. You're a lot more beetles, correct? Or what's your main focus?
Yeah, I mean, I work very, very closely with certain groups of beetles, taxonomically. Yeah. But I mean, when it comes to general biology, movie biology, it's all pretty simple to understand for me.
Got it. And also too, I mean, one thing that gets me, I know it's like a niche cottage industry to get views, but it always bothers me when people go, shark experts watch Deep Blue Sea, and they're like, oh, this is unbelievable. You couldn't genetically modify that. And you're like, bro, this is a movie. It's Deep Blue Sea. And makos are quite smart, and they jump. And I guess one person said that the animatronics look gorgeous. But I never, for me, these spiders take place in that world. So we live in a multiverse, and on this verse, these spiders exist. They don't make any sense, but they exist. In some worlds, there's Tony Stark and Thanos. In this world, there's spiders who I don't even know how they work, but they're horrifying. I don't know why they haven't taken over the world yet.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's a boom bust ecology situation. If you have something that can reproduce that fast, first off, usually their bodies are much smaller, but when you have something that can reproduce that fast, it probably has the kind of metabolism where it doesn't live long. Tortoises don't have a fast metabolism. Whales don't have a fast metabolism. They live a very long time, even though they have large bodies.
The sarlacc.
Right? Fruit flies is the classic example. They, have multiple generations in a week in a biology class. I say fruit flies. The Drosophila species that they use in biology, might live between 6 and 12 days. So these spiders, realistically, what happens when they run out of a food source? Well, they just stick around and hang out on their webs and die off. And then they go back to super small numbers of straggling survivors. Maybe they go to cannibalism for the minority to survive. And then before you know it, they're sparse again. Now in a city, that can turn bad again. But of course, where they found them, if we're going to use this biology, where they found them in the desert, where everything is very sparse, where everything is very spaced out, where prey items are very rare and so are predators, makes sense that you had to search so hard to find them.
And then they just found the absolute. It's kind of it's like an oops situation where, hey, let's go find some cool spiders to sell to people, and then you find this variation of spider. You're like, oh no.
Oops.
Yep. Oops.
My wife's husband Hajarat is dead now.
Yeah. And he's gonna go slaughter
got bit on the
people.
neck. By the way, these spiders, just like arachnophobia, they leap at you and they go for your face or neck.
And they bite you depending on if you're an extra or a main character a lot. Now, One of the things I really like that we haven't talked about is I love that Caleb has that picture of he and Jordy when they were young. And
that's very touching.
Right? And they wanted to hide that from him. Like, so the kid, I say he's a kid, but Caleb, he's a sensitive guy. He just doesn't have the capability of expressing it, but that's fine. Like, there is a very, that's fine. And so, but I liked that touch. I like that photo there. I like that Jordy came back to see him. I like that his girlfriend is super cool. And she's like, we came back for you, man. And like, he doesn't tell people about that so that you don't get blamed. Like, so all the characters in this movie, they're, some of them are sullen, some of them are annoyed. But sometimes, brothers and sisters get to a point where all they do is fight. And then that's all they're going to do for a while until they step back and look at their relationship. So and I thought the way they handled that was really smart. And I guess the one thing I want to ask too is, like, what did you think about the cop interference? Because when they get caught and beat up and there's that big fight scene, and then the cop who saw the bite from earlier, he's like, listen, we had people get killed here too, and the reason the generator was shot is because we shot it on accident. Like, we shot the electrical grid and it blew up because we were defending ourselves, and then of course a lot of them die horrible deaths. But what do you think about the cop intervention as a kind of a secondary antagonist in this movie?
I mean, it's like, I get it. It makes me think a lot of like the Wreck / American Remake Quarantine scenario where like, it's like, well, what do? You quarantine this for public perception. You say that the building is empty. But you're really doing this because, unfortunately, like 150 people are probably going to die. But if we quarantine this, how many thousands are we going to save? And it's just that horrible, it's that lose-lose situation, but your win is saving the most life. So like, I get that there could be someone who has that, yeah, man, fuck the police, whatever. Like that movie shows that. But like, I also kind of get that if they understood the gravity of what was in there, well, what's the logical decision? Because arguably, apparently, you can practically be harboring a chest burster. I assume that's only after you're dead, right? But I mean, I don't know. Why wouldn't they just let someone out who was bitten? Is it because spiderlings might be on their person?
Maybe.
Could be,
Because remember when they squash the spiders, more spiders come out from them?
I think that they were just already in there. I think there was just a little egg case in there personally. That's how I would rationalize that. But, or it was carrying an egg case. There we go. Something like a wolf spider does, or the spiderlings were on its abdomen. That happens a lot in nature too. So there are a lot of explanations for that. But again, I mean, there are a lot of reasons to be very cautious of this. Now, I don't know why they didn't just strip them naked, hose them down, and then, almost like a delicing scene in a prison movie from ages past. But whatever, maybe the CDC was behind this, or the, French equivalent, or NATO, I don't know, making shit up. But, again, so like Quarantine and Rec, it was kind of like a CDC effective thing. The government knew what was going on. They're aware of this virus in the Quarantine and Rec movies. They know how bad this is. That is not getting out. We're just going to say the building, oh yeah, we safely evacuated everyone and we're just trying to contain this. Because what happens if you say otherwise? People will go nuts.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is that pragmatic, that viciously pragmatic thing. And maybe, though, there is a fair statement to be made that if it wasn't low income living, that if it wasn't a high ethnic population in that building, that it would have been dealt with differently. Right. And that's I feel like the movie does a lot of that. The Asian, custodian treats Caleb the same as the vandal. Is that because she doesn't like, ethnic people that aren't Asian? I don't know, maybe, but he was clearly being nice.
Yeah,
and she clearly viewed him as just as much a villain as this kid who threw firecrackers at her feet, when she was, ripping open a garbage bag by accident. And then, and then there was who was it? Like,
Matthias and Jordy are dead because they wouldn't let him out. So they're like, screw these guys. They would have been alive.
But again, there's so much conflict though. Like that Eastern European tenant.
Oh gosh.
I think he was Eastern European.
Apple eating jerk.
But he was just certain that Caleb was selling TN drugs.
Not shoes.
Right? Instead of a pair of shoes. He was certain of it. And then he was certain that TN died of a drug overdose. And then he was certain that he had drugs hidden in his room, and he beats dude, he goes full felony.
Yeah.
He's like, I think that they just didn't break any limbs because the script said it looks horrible, but no limbs are broken. Like, he would have broken limbs, plural, with how he was wailing on those kids with that, like, what do you call it?
Tire iron, like a metal
tire
something.
Iron,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. But like, that dude was just plain mean. Like, he's acting very pious, morally, and he's the only one visually committing crimes. Yeah. Although in his head, he knows they're selling drugs and that's what got someone killed. So he feels like a savior. I assume these are racially driven themes, by the way. They don't all have to be. But I assume that's the theme going on.
Yeah, the main thing is just the director was saying the way that people he calls them the suburbs, but like in the apartment blocks that aren't part of the kind of elite, they're looked at like that. Like, we don't know who you are, but you scare me. And there's people like that over the world. And so, but a lot of people look at arachnids and go, oh, that thing sucks. Even though it's just hanging out, eating bugs, leaving you alone. Like, it's
probably eating the mosquitoes that came into your house.
Yeah, exactly. That are worse. And so I think he wanted to draw that parallel, but he still makes, with the cops, a sign of a good dialogue scene is when both people are making sense. And I'm not saying the cops are right by not letting them out, but the guy's like, hey, we didn't shoot the generator on purpose. We lost people too. We're just trying to get control of this thing. It's crazy. So yeah, he could have let them out easily. Those people could have lived. But also there's a certain amount of sense. Like, it's not a mustache twirling villain like in The Mist, and there's that woman in The Mist who's just, it's Stephen King, so there's always that
Marcia Gay Hayden.
Yeah, there's always just an absolute shit kicker in one of his books. But yeah, they aren't there's really, the only mustache twirler is the guy who whacks him with the tire iron, and Caleb basically kills him. Like, all right, cool, man, go look in that shoebox. Go for it. Do it. And then he does, and he dies. So it's.
And again, our mustache twirler was certain that he was selling drugs that got that guy killed, and that's the real problem. Didn't handle it well.
No,
I'm not defending his actions. I'm just saying he thought he had the high moral ground, and then he behaved very immorally to see that through, and got his comeuppance.
Yeah.
He is a bully. He is also a bully. Absolutely. Yeah, he's a bully.
But I liked, Musa on that. Like, he threw the firecracker, but he was just a kid. Like, I think he was just being a little punk kid. I don't think he's that bad. And then there's Tumani or, Tien. Like, he just wanted his shoes. He's like, listen, man, the soles of my shoes are falling off. I don't care about a box. Just get me a pair of shoes. And also, too, I think this movie does a really good job of, I'm going to call it, they Tremors it. And that's a weird thing to say, but, in Tremors, in the beginning when he's peeing off that cliff, that's where the tremor flies out at the end. Where, they're dealing with the tractors, which they ride later on. They have the ice maker soda machine that shakes, that's used later on. We learn that Bert is getting bullets, that's used later on. It's a really beautiful setup that never feels fully written. It's just a good, tight script. And in this one, you have the water that is dripping on the shoebox, which creates a hole. And then the spider digs a hole into another shoebox, but they set that up. And then he needed the shoebox for, like this person. And then the shoes that he's selling the spiders get into the shoes, which is like a classic trope. And then you have the lights that don't work. You have the angry woman who cleans the apartment buildings. You have the neighbors. You have the feeling of community in the apartment block, and that all comes back later. And then you talk about, let's go to the parking garage, let's do this. I think it really ties itself well together, this film, in regards to, and the guy's an MMA fighter and he gets a sweet arm bar, like in Green Room, right? Which is amazing.
It doesn't go very far, but
I like, he gets maced. But it's a movie that I think, even like what Manon, she's the municipal police officer. Like, I like that aspect
and she
of
makes
her.
a statement of how little that matters to
I'll get on local news.
These higher level cops, right?
But there's good lines to it, and I think every little bit is just well thought out. It's a tight script, and what's kind of crazy, John? It's tough though, because Lila. Manon is the sister, and then Lila is the municipal officer. My apologies, but I don't know. We watch these movies and these seem like simple things to do, these setups, where you have a light in the beginning that doesn't work, and it's Chekhov's light, but it's just little simple things that you can lay down that make the movie so much more effective later on because you know it. And I think that's where movies like Tremors and this are really successful, because they do that. And it doesn't seem hard. It just seems you really got to take care with your script to do that. And then even the ending with Caleb, when he finds the spider and lets it go, like, I dug that ending. I don't know, I liked this group. Like, these were all like, what's nice about watching like international horror films or anything in general is you probably haven't seen these actors in many places before. So they kind of exist as the characters. It's not like you're watching David Arquette in a spider movie, right? Or, I love Jeff Daniels and John Goodman, but you're watching those characters. Here, I got in, like, I look at them as Manon, as Lila, as Jordy, as Matthias, as Caleb. Like, you look at them as the characters. So I like that. I like this movie, John. Thanks for recommending it.
A wonderful movie. This, it's funny. I feel like I spent 20 of the last 30 years since Arachnophobia waiting for an Arachnophobia remake, although also at the same time dreading an Arachnophobia remake. So this is the Arachnophobia remake that we've been waiting for like 30 years to see. We're terrified to see, and it turned out well. And they gave it like a little bit of peppering of wreck and a dash of more mature-minded eight-legged freaks for a little nonsense biology, and great characters. And in a way, though, and again, you mentioned like the John Goodman, these characters among them have no caricatures.
None.
A lot of times these movies, regardless of how well we recognize the actors, some of these actors or some of the non-major actors play these almost over stereotyped caricatures, like John Goodman and as the Exterminator, this cartoonish thing existing in this otherwise serious movie. Like there's none of that. Again, the crazy bully who thinks that Caleb's dealing drugs is the closest thing to that, maybe, but I'm just saying closest to that. He is not that. He's an accurate depiction of the kind of thing I might expect to see in this building. I do love that at one point, though, our Asian custodian has two front holstered, like, raid cans.
Yeah.
When she finds her demise. Like, she was like no nonsense in trying to deal with these spiders. She was just like getting her face up there.
Even if you love spiders and you love animals, if you see this spread of spiders this fast, you gotta do something about it. I think it kind of goes out the window, doesn't it? Of like, we gotta save these things. Like, we should probably kill these things. It's gonna be chaos if we don't. So I like that she got up there and did that, and a lot of time was dedicated to that. And I feel bad for Emmett with his shoes and his dog, but like, it's such a silly scene to base the entire thing around spiders and shoes. That's why I kind of like this movie too, where it's very serious and it can be very brutal and it can be very, brutal in a French kind of way, but then also it just has a spiders and shoes moment. So it's quite silly as well. So I think it balances all that really well, and I dig it about that. Mm-hmm. Also, it's interesting. I think, a lot of French horror films I like. The Night Eats the World, the guy is trapped in a place. Inside, she gets trapped in a place. Martyrs, people get kidnapped. High Tension, Meander, a woman gets trapped. The Deep House, they get trapped. Climax, they get trapped with LSD. Frontiers, they get trapped. Them, well, it's a house invasion. They're not really trapped, but they're kind of trapped. French people like the Horde trapped. I think French people kind of like trapping people and then killing them. Just want to put that out there for you, John.
Makes me want to not make any French friends now that you said it that way.
Well, just go watch like Titan, Raw, or Revenge. No one really. I mean, no one gets trapped in Titan. I guess she gets trapped in a situation. And then Revenge, she's kind of trapped in the desert looking for revenge. And then Raw, she's at like a terrible school. But they're not held prisoner anywhere. Man, I love French horror films, John. You probably were on them before me. Like, I watched High Tension, but you had watched Martyrs and Frontiers long before I ever did.
I mean, sure, I'm just looking for gory stuff in a way.
But you love the ending of Martyrs.
Oh, yeah.
Because
it's not as good as the ending of High Tension, though.
Oh, my gosh.
That's an even bigger gut punch.
Do you think, I think Martyrs builds to something. I Saw the Devil, which is a South Korean film, builds to something. I kind of like how this movie... I mean, listening to Geordie scream and just while he's dying, that's a brutal moment in this. Like, the dog dies in this movie. Like, nice people die brutally. But I like that. I feel like the French have no problem doing that. This is not a sugar-coated movie, I would say. I know, because only 3 of the 5 live. That's still a pretty good ratio, but this isn't. It's just an odd one where it's a little bit more brutal than you think, but also there's better characterization than you would think. And the visual effects are better than you would think. So it's just a good job by a director who finally got enough money to make a feature.
Like, all the layers that go into filmmaking, it seems like everything was done very well and thoughtfully. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was half-assed. Nothing was done for the sake of doing it for, the equivalent of a laugh or a shock for the sake of a laugh or a shock. Like a lot of heart went into this. I think that's what makes it really stand out.
I think you nailed it. That's what the director said. He's like, the French, we don't have many horror films, and there's never been a spider horror film. So they like, we never have horror movies, we never have spider movies. This was the first time, so we wanted to do the best movie possible. And so he's like, so I needed to work with the best human beings possible. And they were really good actors, but it's not enough. You have to put everything in this movie. And these guys, we had a contract with each other. I will do my best to do the best movie possible. And you will give me everything that you have during a short period of time. And that's what they did. They never complained. They put everything in this movie so you can feel it when you watch it. I like that.
Because it's a film. It's a film without even being an artistic or highbrow film. The Purge, that was a film. The Purge sequels, they're not
movies. Yeah.
Yeah. They are movie to hardly flick, depending on the movie in question. And they might be very entertaining movies or flicks, but The Purge was a film, right? This is a film. Saloon was a film. Evil Dead Rise, really, really cool movie. I'm not willing to call that. I'm not willing to put that in the film category, but I loved it.
Here's the thing, right? Evil Dead Rise is wonderful, and I think the lead is great, and she's good in that movie Monolith. But I don't think it's trying to be a film. I think it just wants to be a movie that makes you very happy.
But I think that when you do that, you're doing things for the sake of doing them, and that's what I think that Infested never does.
Yeah. Because there's no big jump scares. There's a couple cheeky scare moments when, they're putting things back, but it's a horror movie. And also, most importantly, why not play with things that most people deal with when they're putting in stuff? Like, that's
I'm
smart.
not saying I would have wanted it made any different way.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. Hey, so John, before we get out of here, do you want to do our draft?
Okay. So what's our draft? Be specific.
Okay. So I messaged you and I said, talk about like our favorite characters from horror movies who are trapped inside of a location with a monster. Or we can do movies. Whatever one you want. Movies about people trapped.
Let's do whole movies.
Okay. So movies about people. So, okay, John. So it's not like Jurassic Park 2, for instance. They go to the island and then they get chased around the island. That's not a trapped
island.
movie,
No.
right? That's not a trapped movie. When it comes to trap movies, I'm just going to give a couple examples here, just to kind of where where I'm coming from, and I'll try to pick movies that you might not pick. So like Alien Resurrection, they are trapped on that.
Okay, that's a big facility.
Yeah,
okay,
but like they got to get from point A to point B, and there's a lot of deadly creatures on there. Like they are stuck. They can't go outside. Like they can't just go, hey, peace, and walk out the escape door because they're dead.
I was approaching it thinking of a singular structure or edifice.
I have plenty of those. So then we're talking Feast. We're talking Bait. We're talking, let's see, Chopping Mall.
Sure.
So it's stuff like that.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Like cool. Where it's a single. Now, don't get me wrong. I can say that the ship in Alien Resurrection was a singular thing, but that thing is the size of a town. There's so much going on there. But I mean, I don't feel like it should be disqualified. But I wasn't thinking on that scale.
I guess the main thing I'm thinking about is if you go outside, you're dead. So you're inside with something. Like if you leave in Alien Resurrection, you're not gonna live. You're just.
That's like Event Horizon then.
But see, are those monsters? Yeah. You're dead. You're dead. You are dead. If you leave the facility in the thing, you're dead. If you leave the thing in Pandorum, you're dead. And you're stuck inside with horrifying things.
They're just so big though. Again, I wasn't thinking that way. I came up with kind of a mock list just to see how I felt as we were talking about it.
Listen, I can roll with anything, man. So I'll let you go first.
No. Mine just happened to be like buildings, condos, something like a mall or like a. Mine are in that territory.
Well, I have a list of over 40 movies because I'm working on a data post, so I can pivot to whatever you want.
I have a list. Well, my list isn't small. I came prepared. My list is like 12. Since we're drafting 5, you could pick my top 5, and I still have plenty to go.
Heck yeah. I'll let you go first, though, so you can at least get one of them.
All right, so I'm going first. Okay, I feel like I need to go out of my way to bring attention to certain movies. I'm just going to say honorable mention The Thing. I feel like that facility is very broad, and we talk about The Thing a shit ton. So I'm not going to choose The Thing, although The Thing is the coolest thing out there. I'm going to pick 1975's Shivers. David Cronenberg's basically kind of rapey, sexual assaulty, parasitic infection movie that takes place in a condo.
Oof. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, we had to get Cronenberg's great at, well, no, I mean, The Fly isn't really that. He does get stuck in there, but he does leave.
Oh, they're in a bunch of different places, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Shivers, that's perfect.
And Rabid, she's out hunting on the town.
Yeah, you can't count that one. That's a good movie. Oh, Shivers. That's a nice Criterion. Is that Criterion? I don't know, but I love that. All right, great pick. I'm going to go with Crawl. Because they're in a house. They're in the crawl space. You know what annoys me most about that movie? It doesn't annoy me about the movie. But John, where I grew up in Florida, I grew up in Hudson, Florida. And when you're close to the water, a lot of houses are on cinder blocks. Or they are lifted up 3-4 feet off the ground. So if there's a flood, the water goes underneath. A lot of people are like, Florida doesn't have basements. I'm like, it's a crawl space where water can go underneath if it floods. So it always annoyed me, John, that people are like, there's no basements in Florida. It's like, it's not a basement. Houses just have to be elevated. And that's the elevated space. That's why he's down there. Like, it's not a basement. They have the ground and they lifted the house up. That's not a basement. They didn't dig into the ground. So I'm getting on it. I'm going to stop, John. I'm just going to stop there.
I think that I'm going for what might be a steal from you. I'm going to pick Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight.
Yep.
Was that high on your list?
Yeah, I love that movie.
That was my feisty pick. I specifically thought he's going to pick this. I'm going to pick this as an early pick.
Well, dude, it's such a good. I mean, it's a big cavernous house, but it's still a middle of the nowhere location. Billy Zane is great, and it's a mean movie. This is a mean movie. Oh, you're gonna like this one, John. Werewolves Within.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Because they get bunkered, right? They get bunkered in because all the generators are broken down, so they all go together while a werewolf kills them. Does that count?
Yeah, I think that they wandered around that small town.
Yeah,
but it's such a small town. It's such a small town. I feel like the movie is accomplishing the same thing.
I'm gonna take Sea Fever.
Ooh,
that's a tiny boat.
I loved Sea Fever.
Yeah, me too.
Did I introduce you to Sea Fever?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you told me about it, and I went and watched it.
It was really cool.
I love that
giant
movie.
Lovecraftian sea anemone underneath them,
And they're
kind of thing.
Stuck on a boat.
Okay.
Boat.
I'm not necessarily picking my favorites. I'm picking things that I think that people need to see if they haven't seen or they might not think about. Okay, ready? 1990. Baboon on the Run. Shakma.
Shakma?
So Shakma is like a super intelligent, kind of extra strong, highly aggressive, experimental baboon in this building where some students are kind of partying in the evening, and they're trapped by virtue. They like can't even get down a floor because this baboon is chasing them down. And when I say this thing is chasing them, this is like not SPCA friendly. There are scenes where I don't know what they did to get this baboon to try and break down a door or a mandrill. I think it is, maybe not a baboon, but like this thing, you'd think it was in fast forward. How many times it shoulder butts a door in 10 seconds, the number is like 40. It's like, bah, 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 bah. Like you think it's hurting itself, and it's really the animal doing it when they're filming. This animal is just like bum rushing people left and right. So it's a goofy, like campy, silly movie. It's not, the kind of more filmish level of Monkey Shines, which is just a year before it, I think. But Shakma.
Oh, that's a great pick. Okay, so
and I've reviewed that. If someone wants to go cruise around on the website, there's a John's Horror Corner on Shakma.
Okay, so what do you think about Rogue, the giant crocodile movie? Because they're on a boat, but then they get trapped on an island. That doesn't really count. I'm gonna take The Shallows because she's stuck on a rock.
Yeah, that's very singular, and it's a better movie.
Yeah.
Not that Rogue isn't a good movie, but The Shallows is
a really good movie. Yeah. And
The Shallows is very effective.
I recently watched a lot of shark movies for a data post, and the same data post, and I watched The Shallows again. And that movie doesn't get old. It's like Blake Lively's best performance by 8,000. That shark is an absolute jerk. Steven Seagal's great. And it gives a great reason for why she's out there to kind of celebrate her mom. Like she's not, and she brought a friend with her, but her friend was too hungover. It's just smart. Every decision is smart. So yeah, I'm gonna take The Shallows.
All right. My next pick, 2016. They sent me a DVD and a bunch of office stationery to review it, and I thank them greatly because I would have just paid to rent it on my own. The Belko Experiment.
Oh man, that's a mean one.
Love me, The Belko Experiment. Great cast. If you grew up loving Scrubs, John C. McGinley, and if you don't like Scrubs, he comes to a horrible end.
Hey, that's by the director of Rogue, so at least we got some McLean in there, so that's good. But that movie, man, I wasn't ready for how mean that movie was. Mean. You watch it a second time and you like it more because the first time you go, holy mackerel, this is a mean flick. So no, that's perfect. All right, so I'm gonna take 2010's Devil.
Oh, I didn't even think to put that on. That's a great pick. I love that.
I mean,
I love that. That's just an elevator.
Yeah, you know what annoys me is that movie. I think people now realize it's good, but it came out during his really terrible run with Airbender and Another Earth and all those crap sandwiches, and he only produced it. So it's kind of crazy that I remember when the trailer showed it produced by M. Night Shyamalan, everyone laughed. I'm like, oh no. So I went and watched Devil and I loved it, but too many people are like, oh, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. I'm like, no, just watch it. It's good. It is a really good movie. Devil's a really good movie.
I loved it from the start. I've got a very warm place in my heart for that movie. It's so well done, I think.
I agree. I love it. All right, so what's your fifth pick?
Okay, final pick. Okay. Just because I most recently reviewed it, I'm going to pick Poltergeist 3.
Yeah.
Which takes place, unfortunately, in a dark era in horror in the 80s and very early 90s. This is a 1988 film when horror sequels were doing the horror in the big city theme, like Critters 3
Gremlins
and
2.
Hellraiser 3 and Children of the Corn part. That also might have been
Child's
part 3.
Play.
Right, Child's Play eventually.
The first one.
A lot of these went to the big city, and that was just like, and it's like it was in the city for the sake of being in a city. It's just like, look, we're in an apartment building now. Oh, how cool and edgy, because
like
that's becoming more common now. And but I really like Poltergeist 3. I think that historically Poltergeist 3 is considered like the redheaded stepchild of the Poltergeist movies. And is it the bottom of the three? Sure, maybe for me. But I think it's really rewatchable. It's got some great horror gags in it. It's not as thematic in how it builds to things. It doesn't really build to things. However, neither did The Gate. The Gate had a bunch of random crap that happened, and then in the end, they're just like, hey, remember that thing in the beginning? This is how we're closing it, right? But I love The Gate. The Gate's an awesome horror movie. All the gags are well done. The characters are quite likable. I think Poltergeist 3 is awesome. Doesn't hold a candle to parts 2 and 1, but I still think it's great. Tom Skerritt, Nancy Allen, Laura Flynn Boyle. Like, this is a cool movie, folks. If you haven't seen Poltergeist 3 or 1 or 2, you should probably see all 3 of them. And there was a time in my life, if you had asked me 20 years ago, I'd have been like, oh yeah, I like them all, but just watch parts 1 and 2. Part 3 is just for the hardcore, nonsense horror fans. Whereas now I'm like, no, this is good. Like, it's not great, but it's really good.
It's good.
I really enjoyed revisiting this last week, and I really enjoyed writing about it. And I'm like, I feel remiss that every 5 years I'd watch Poltergeist 1 and 2, and then I'd look at part 3 and be like, yeah, not this time. And now I'm always going to do it. Now, anytime I revisit Poltergeist, I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. By the way, that remake, that's not on my list.
No, that was bad. Yeah, get out of here. Right.
Yeah, they were trapped in this mega condo building that had a mall in it. It had a grocery store in it. It had businesses, art galleries, corporate offices, and it's tough to get out of a building. And if the elevator isn't safe, and you're on like the 80th floor of a building, and you're being chased around by mirror image ghosts, because it was the theme of the movie, Evil Reflections. That's gotta get to the other side in this, right? But that was, I really dug this movie. And by the way, for them, one of the thoughts was go to the parking garage. That's how we're going to get out.
Oh, hey, everyone goes to the parking garage.
That happened in this, as well.
I love it.
Didn't work out. Poltergeist 3.
So I was going to say Bait 3D because I love that they're trapped with great whites, but there's also psychotic thieves in it. It's just,
well, that was Sharni Vincent.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pick that one though, because I love, it's like a shark movie, but then there's also like unhinged thieves, who are secondary antagonists, and there's just way too much plot. So
you know why you can't pick Bait 3D? Because 3 of your 4 picks so far are aquatic, and if you pick a 4th aquatic movie, I'm going to be like, how's Devil in there?
Well, no, I like that. I'm going to make people go, what? So I'm going to take The Deep House, John, a French...
Oh, you're still going aquatic!
Yeah, I'm going to take a French horror film where 2 divers, influencers, get stuck. They get stuck in a house. Literally stuck. And they have to battle ghosts that were flooded. And it's not a good movie. And the plot isn't good. But the fact that they filmed it underwater makes me love it.
It had some neat visuals. I got to say, I guess I'm glad I watched that movie. I'm not recommending it to anyone unless they're like, I love horror movie and I went to film school. And I'll be like, okay, you'd probably enjoy watching this once.
Because they filmed it underwater. You know what's crazy though? It's one of our most popular Deep Blue Sea episodes. It just keeps getting listens. Because we're probably the only one who covered it. But yeah, so John, you have Shivers, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, Shockma, The Belko Experience, and Poltergeist 3. You went funky and you went amazing. I have Crawl, Sea Fever, The Shallows, Devil, and The Deep House.
You have Devil and water movies.
If I took Pandorum, is that a water movie?
No, I think that not really. Not
Okay.
really.
But you know what I mean.
Not in the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because the ship is a bit submerged there and there's a bit of water scene. But no, I feel like you'd have to go more. Those other ones are like true water movies. I mean, even Crawl, because the hurricane comes through with the flooding threat and it's an alligator. And, it's like it's just so there.
I'm surprised you didn't take Life.
Again, when I have a big ship, that just wasn't my mindset. Like, I didn't do anything with like spaceships. But I went with like the other things on my list were like The Mist,
grocery
Wreck,
store,
Beast,
apartment,
Dark Tower, which is literally an evil condo movie from 1987. Demons 1 and 2, that's a movie theater in a condo. Dawn of the Dead.
See, I didn't take those because, like, all right. So for me, Night of the Living Dead, they barricade themselves in a house and then it becomes a siege thriller. Like, I wanted things where people are stuck with something. Does that make sense? Like,
fair enough. Yeah. And in a way, Dawn of the Dead does it too, because they really barricade themselves in that kind of like office nook.
Yeah.
And they just go out to forage, right? But like Evil Dead Rise, I had Hellraiser remake I picked because those people were deliberately trapped in that mansion.
Yeah.
Honorable mention The Thing and Mayhem for the same reason as Belko Experiment. Like those were that was the flavor that I was manifesting.
In my list, I had Deep Blue Sea, Alien Resurrection, Crawl, Deep Star 6, Leviathan, Tremors, Deep Rising, The Descent, Underwater, Chopping Mall, Pandorum, Attack the Block, The Thing, Jurassic Park, Shallows, Predators, Hills Have Eyes, Mist, Black Demon, Infested, Monster, Feast, Bait, Life, Relic, The Cave, Waters Within, Gremlins 2, Alien 3, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 3, 30 Days of Night, Wreck, Alive, #Alive, Pitch Black, Storage 23, The Flood, Sea Fever, Rogue, Sweetheart. And I'm going to add a bunch of the ones you said.
Two things. One for the audience. He said Deep Star 6. Today that we're recording anyway is May 21st. This might not come out for like a month, but Deep Star 6, he just dropped a podcast episode on this, episode 560. Love that movie and Leviathan. Is Leviathan on your list? Okay. All right. You went through pretty fast. Question number 2, but I have a question. You listed Storage 23. I remember when that came out, I was thinking about watching it. I was always on the fence. I kept hearing No? Okay. No. I kept hearing people say things that were just interesting enough for me to keep it on my list, but never interesting enough for me to watch it. So you're saying it's like a monster?
Yeah, it's just not all there. I mean, if you're going to background it when you're cooking and working out, maybe, but it's not all there.
Okay.
It's a good idea. Very good idea, but it's not all there, but they're stuck with a monster. So I had to add it.
Okay.
Hey, well, John, I got to get you out of here, man, but where can people find you before we get out of here?
If you just type in John's Horror Corner in your Google search, or maybe whatever other search engine we're using, Bing, are there others? You'll probably find me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Movies, Films, and Flicks website. There's a little tab, John's Horror Corner, right next to the podcast tab where you can find the newest episode, Deep Star 6, newest this second in real time for us anyway. And where you'll eventually find this episode. But yeah, John's Horror Corner everywhere.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, John, thank you for joining me. We have some Kurt Russell movies coming out. We have some Dolph Lundgren movies coming out. We might even get another one in. We have another one. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So we
got to do Deadstream. We've been delaying Deadstream, and we want to get Deadstream out there. That's a movie, folks. I'm not saying that you have to wait for our podcast to eventually come out, but Deadstream's worth watching if you weren't sure.
It's hilarious. And he's stuck there
because
they mess with his car.
Then listen to us, and then watch it again.
I love that movie so much. All right, John. Well, thank you so much for joining me. So for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for John Levengood, this is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week.